Hello, and welcome to Imbalancing the Spectrum. I am your host, Jose. Today, we'll be talking about something a little bit more spiritual. Uh, to start off, mental health is a key point in our spiritual journey. So, when you have your mental health journey, you're also having a spiritual journey as well. Spiritual, most people will probably align that word with religion, and it is anything but religious. Now, just to be clear, I have nothing against religion. Religion itself is a guide for an individual's spiritual journey. What religion is supposed to do is guide you to follow your own intuition and create this personal relationship with God. And that's very much what spirituality is learning how to follow our intuition, listen to our own voice, and listen to the universe, God, creator, source, spirit, whatever terminology you have for it. That's what spirituality is. So, before we start talking about today's topic, which is life contracts, let me list off some of the types of contracts that exist. It may not be all of them, but it's the ones that I acknowledge the most. And I will go more in depth as we go along. So we have physical contracts, verbal contracts, relationship contracts, and ethereal contracts. These type of contracts are one of the ways that our world functions. In everyday life, you have constant contracts being made all over the world, and it's just the way that um, the world tends to function. By the way, quick side note, if you can hear snoring in the background, that's my dad's dog, so uh, try to ignore him if you can hear him. If not, well, forget I mentioned anything. But going back to what we were talking about, let's break down what I meant by physical contract. This is what you would normally think of when you think the word contract. It's on paper and it is a legally binding document. And I'm sure that most of you know how these documents work, so I'll just go over the basic stuff that pertain to a legal contract. So, when you make a contract with somebody, you have certain terms and conditions that have to be met from both parties or for both parties. Usually, one party has more benefit than the other. Unfortunately, that's how our legal system works. Um, but most of everyone, most of us, uh, don't bother to read documents because they're so long and they use words to confuse you. If you don't know what those words mean, you get even more confused, and they have you explain, or they explain it to you and what the basic idea of the contract is. For example, you get hired, you sign a contract. The contract, if you don't read it, they explain it to you and they will say, you work, we pay. But there may be other terms and conditions that they don't even touch on. So it's kind of a trick of theirs to have control over you. And unpopular opinion here, but I do see work, like working for big companies, as a type of, and a lot of you are going to be triggered by the term I'm going to use, but I see it as legal slavery because you are signing your will away to these people to work for them. And if you, one way or another, break your contract, you're the one with repercussions. If they break their contract, they have lawyers that could find a way around it or do something for them to not be damaged by the contract that they wrote up and that you signed. So that's my thought. Those are my thoughts on the physical contract, the physical, yes, sorry, just repeated myself. The contract in our three-dimensional world, which is legally binding, and we're signing them all the time. And you may be thinking, I don't really sign documents without reading it. Most of us, even just on social media, you have your terms and conditions. Do we go through all of them? Most of us don't, including myself. Most of us don't. And we just click agree and we're done. We think we're done, but we never know. There's been situations where people are reprimanded because they break terms and conditions without knowing that was part of terms and conditions. Um, Same thing when we visit different websites. They have you accept cookies, first of all, and that's a type of contract because they want to gather your data and what it is you do. So when you accept cookies, you're letting that specific website gather data from you. And that's just the basic knowledge that I have from what cookies are. I'm not really tech savvy, so I can't speak on something that I don't fully comprehend. Um, this, but yes, cookies. We accept them, and now there are certain sites that won't allow you to have access to them unless you accept the cookies. And I feel like they're forcing your hand, especially if that website is needed for you in whatever way it is, whether it's for school, for work, for um, research, whatever it may be. You have no choice but to accept them. And this is only the first example of how our world works using contracts. The second example, let's go to verbal contracts. Verbal contracts are essentially promises, and a promise is an agreement that is not binding. So you don't have to follow um, the terms and conditions that you agree to with another person or multiple people. And this is more so of an ethical choice whether to stand by your word or not. And in most cases, or at least in my experience, promises that have been made have been broken. And this kind of leaves a residual feeling after the promise is made. And it can leave residual feelings for both parties. Um, for the one that breaks the promise, later on in life, they might feel guilty about it, uh, maybe regret, and a lot of the times this does happen, but there's also a lot of times that people just don't care. For the person that doesn't break their promise, or the promise was broken too, they the residual feeling that they feel is hurt. You're wounded because that promise you thought was unconditional turned out to be a conditional agreement. A lot of the times, verbal promises are based on conditions or expectations that one person agrees to in their mind. They don't necessarily make it known to the other person, and this is shady to me because when we make a promise, we should talk about the terms and the conditions that apply to that promise. Just as an example, um, when you're a kid, parents promise you a lot of things, and it usually ends up being a broken promise. Like, if you behave today, you will get a reward, whatever the reward is. And you do behave, and the promise is broken. They lied to you. They only wanted you to behave. Um, and in those types of scenarios, the kid is not, or how can I put that? The kid doesn't know what a promise actually means a lot of the times. As you grow little by little, you start learning what a promise actually means. Like kids, just kids in general, and maybe some adults too. I still do it sometimes. We do pinky promises. We put our pinkies together, we intertwine them, and that means you have my word and I have yours. And for some reason, for kids, a pinky promise is the strongest promise that you can make. And for most kids, they follow through on what they say, what they agree upon. Whereas adults only follow through on their promises when it's convenient for them. When it's not, then the promise is broken. In this example, parent child promise is broken. Even if the kid behaves, it was convenient for the parent to uh, or for their kid to behave. But what wasn't convenient was following through on giving them some sort of reward. And we did talk about residual feelings. The kid ends up being disappointed and hurt that their parents would lie to them. And in a lot of cases, well, speaking from experience myself when I was a kid, um, the promises that were broken by my parents, uh, the more I saw these promises being broken, the more normal it felt to me. So, as I grew up, in my perception of things, I thought it was normal to break promises. I would make promises that I would follow through on, but I would repeat the cycle that my parents created, and I would break some promises when it wasn't convenient for me. Um, I'm trying to give you an example. Um, so I didn't have many friends growing up, but there was this one specific person that I had this strong attachment, and we saw each other as brother and sister, and I did talk a little bit about that last time, but I would always make a promise to her and follow on my word. She would make a promise and she would break them, and that felt normal to me. She didn't always break them, but there was times that she would, and I was like, it's normal. And me breaking a promise, it would be mostly with my brothers. I would promise them certain things like giving them ice cream or, well, before I continue that, my relationship dynamics with my brothers were very different. I was very cruel in my younger years towards one of my brothers specifically. And now, as adults, we've talked about it and we've agreed to leave it in the past. Um, I forgave myself for being the way that I was towards him. I was cruel to a point, and I kind of received, not kind of, I did receive cruelty back from him. So our dynamic was very um, unstable. Even though I thought I was doing the right thing at the time because that's what I was taught, um, I came to learn that it wasn't the right thing. So, back to the promise. Like, my youngest brother, I would promise him ice cream, but I wouldn't give it to him because maybe I thought that he didn't need to eat so many sweets, and he would end up being disappointed. And with my other brother, I would make promises such as playing with him and like playing video games with him. And we would play video games, but when I would make those type of promises with him, like playing video games with him, and I don't know why this is the first example from my experience that I thought of, but there were times that when it wasn't convenient for me, if I didn't feel like gaming, um, I would break my promise and I would be angry at him. So essentially, I was not kind of. I was a type of gaslighter in my younger years, and I'm talking like 11 to 17, 18 years old. Um, and as time progressed, I healed, and honestly, our our relationship has gotten better, and uh, I'm glad for that. But there are times that I do remember how I treated him and how much I would break my promises to him, and um, at the time I didn't acknowledge how he felt about it because it wasn't convenient for me at the time, consciously or not. It wasn't convenient for me. Uh, and again, consciously or not, I was hurting him. So, this is what I'm trying to say with promises, that a verbal contract can be broken when it's not convenient for the other person. And I might be giving out lame examples, lame examples, but it holds the examples that I'm giving you hold the essence of what I'm trying to verbalize. So, real quick, just to finish off with verbal contracts, I want to point out another example that might be more relative to most people is verbal verbal contracts in romantic relationships. You go into a relationship, you get to know one another, and um, when you think you're committed to one another, you make a promise like, I promise you, baby, that you're the one. You're the one I want to be with and spend my life with. And maybe both of you make this promise. Maybe just one of you makes a promise. But let's say that just one of you makes this promise. I promise I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And you go about your life and you meet somebody that you're attracted to and you begin to cheat. You just broke your promise just by the thought of, maybe I can get away with this. Maybe the person that I'm with at the moment isn't the one. Maybe that other person is the one for me. So just by thinking that, you already broke the promise that you made. And if you follow through on your thoughts, you're continuing this pattern of cheating and hiding, and you start to, let's say, not answer texts. And every relationship has their own dynamics, but for phones and texting, calling, uh, when you get to know your partner, you get to know their schedule, when they talk to you and when they can't or don't talk to you. And you start seeing these patterns of not calling, not texting around the time that you would usually text each other or talk to each other. And that feeling that the other person is feeling is like, what's going on? I feel like they're distancing themselves from me. What can I do? Did I do something wrong? They start doubting themselves. They start um, thinking the worst. Maybe he doesn't love me, or maybe they don't love me. And um, it's a very negative and awful feeling to have when you're uncertain of where your relationship lies. As for the person that is cheating, they're probably having the best time of their lives, and the other person is being faithful and self torturing themselves because of this other person's, their partner's actions. When the truth comes out, because it always comes out one way or another at one point in time, it will always come out. When it comes out, it usually the person that broke the promise and started cheating, they um, they go into this defensive and offensive behavior, and they will start telling their partner that they only cheated because they weren't giving them attention, even if they were giving them attention or giving them too much attention. You were clingy, and maybe that's not the case at all, but they have to find some sort of excuse to make the other person feel responsible for their partner cheating on them. And this is pitiful. If you do this, you're probably going to continue to do this, but think about how the other person is being affected and how they feel. Why play with their emotions? If you want to cheat, think about it first. Like, do I really want to go and fuck around? Do I want to find somebody that could be better for me? Whatever it is, whether it's sex driven or romantically driven, the reasons that you decided to cheat, think about it first. And if you say, yeah, I need to find something else that I need, something that I want, not need, and my partner isn't giving it to me, so I'm going to be, or I should be honest with them and let them know how I'm feeling and that this relationship uh, was not the one for me. And you let them know, like, hey, okay, so I've been feeling certain things and I need to talk to you, and you let them know why it is that you've been feeling that way, and maybe you do care for that person. That's why I say be honest, be transparent with them, because if you actually care about them, you're not going to do something that hurts them. In this case, letting them know how you truly feel and that you're not ready for a full on commitment with them specifically. It will hurt them, but it will hurt less than if uh, they learned that you decided to cheat. It will hurt because they love you. It will hurt because they care about you. And eventually, with time, they will heal from that wound. Um, and maybe for some of us, we can think back on that relationship that we had with that person and think to ourselves, what did I learn from that relationship? Usually, any type of relationship uh, has lessons in them for us, and it's up to us to learn from them or avoid them and continue to hurt. Whereas if they found out you're cheating, there can be a buildup of resentment, anger, hate, self loathing, self blaming, shame. it could bring up a lot of feelings. I'm not saying that being honest with them isn't gonna bring up these feelings, but when they find out you cheat, the thing is, we tend to blame ourselves, and those feelings kind of boil and marinate within us. And if we don't deal with those feelings, then we become a lower frequency functioning person. But what I mean by low frequency functioning um, is that you go into these negative thoughts, negative energies, negative feelings that define how you think, how you act, and how you feel about yourself and about others. Whereas if you do the healing, you become high functioning or high frequency functioning. And that means that you accept the positive aspect of that relationship, even though if it was a negative experience for you, you find the silver lining, you find the positive side to it. There's always a positive side to everything. And you take that, you take the positive and leave the negative behind. When you leave the negative behind, you heal. You may have scars if they're not fully healed, but that's okay. You're still high functioning, and you let go of your past. Okay, well, enough of that. I said I was gonna quick, and I just went on our rant. But moving on, let's move on to relationship contracts. And this is with any type of relationship, whether it's a relationship with yourself, with somebody romantically, with friends, co-workers, family members, strangers. Um, these relationship contracts happen without us knowing or being aware of them, um, because they have to do more with the intellectual, the emotional, and the spiritual connection of people, and I guess physical connection as well. Um, so, when it comes to relationship contracts, um, you do bond with others based on the root connection, whether it's intellectual, emotional, spiritual, physical. Um, and you can have all these things in one relationship, but a lot of the times it has to kind of escalate from one root connection to another, and it just keeps on evolving. Like intellectual intellectual connections. You bond with a person over their intellect, whether it's that they're very informative, you find them to be smart, or just the way that they think, whether they're philosophical or they share values that you yourself have. An emotional connection is more bonding over feelings and, well, more than feelings, emotions. Therefore, the name emotional connection. Um, anyway, so you bond over these emotions if both of you have had rough times. You're understanding one another because you can empathize with them. Maybe you've been through something similar. Uh, Obviously, not the same exact situation, but you know how they feel because you went through similar things. Um, and the physical connection, well, more than physical connection, I would say uh, sexual, I guess. Uh, I kind of jumped ahead. That I should have said that a physical connection can be how they express themselves physically, whether it's the way they walk, the way they move their hands, the way they're affectionate towards you or other people, and you admire that about them. You feel that physical connection with them. They might not feel the same when it comes to that type of physical connection, but you do build this contract based on the physical connection, and I'll explain that this physical contract, without their knowledge or even your own, is more so I admire the way you are, I admire the way you walk, the way um, you move your hands, the way you hug, the way you touch my hand. It's very comforting to me. So, mostly being unaware, you created a contract that you expect them to be like that, um, to be affectionate towards you or others at all times because you admire them. Or if you know them well enough and they're not always that affectionate, but you still accept it, you still expect them to have this, um, to admire their physical expressions when they do experience them, when they do express them. But on the sexual side is a full on spectrum. There are people who feel sexually attracted to people based on how they physically express themselves, whether it's, like I said, uh, walking, their way of showing physical affection, but, and I forgot to mention also how they express themselves through their clothing or makeup, no makeup, piercings, no piercings, tattoos, no tattoos. That's a physical connection as well. So um, on the sexual side, you can have that physical connection with them, um, but it can also be emotional. Obviously, you feel these deep emotion towards them. Maybe they feel it too. And intellectually, a lot of people are attracted, sexually attracted to people who they find to be intellectual. And um, I believe when it comes to like intelligence, not just intellectual, uh, when it comes to being attracted to how a person thinks and how smart they are, I believe it's called being sapiosexual. And I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Um, because, okay, sapio, uh, it's a Latin root word. I forget what it actually means, but uh, in Latin root languages such as Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, there's this word. Um, in Spanish, it's saber. In French, it's savoir. And Italian, I honestly forget, but I think it's something like saper, maybe. I may be completely wrong. I forget my Italian, the Italian that I learned um, in after high school. Anyway, so that those words, the translation is to know. So it makes sense that someone who is sapiosexual is attracted to a person sexually because they find what they know or what they express to know to be sexually attractive to them. It's a turn on for them. And I can resonate with that. I am attracted to different people on different levels, or I have been attracted to, I meant to say, on different levels and different root connections, whether they were intellectual, emotional, physical, or spiritual. So that's what um, the physical connection is. And instead of talking about how those contracts work, I'm going to finish the list first. Let's go to uh, emotional. Or did I already talk about emotional? Yeah, I did talk about emotional. I don't know what I'm thinking of. I'm tripping. Anyway, uh, spiritual connection. So, spiritual connection is based on a bond that you share values, you could share perspectives, and you don't always have to share everything with them, or you don't have to be 100% compatible with a person um, to be spiritually attracted to them. It could just be a spiritual admiration. Like, you could have a friend that you find to be wise, and they always have some sort of good advice to give, and you lean on that friend. And you lean on that friend because you uh, find them to be insightful and helpful to your situations. And when you're both spiritually compatible, uh, there is an unsaid expectation that you maintain with each other. Like, okay, you are spiritual in this type of way. I expect you to be that way. Um, and to evolve and grow as a person. But sometimes, uh, spirituality is an it's a roller coaster. You have good days, you have bad days. So when you expect people to be that way all the time, it's an unrealistic expectation that you have set for yourself and for them. Where, whether it's unknowingly or not, which in most cases, these relationship contracts are always going to be unknowingly or subconscious. Um, but yeah, if one day they're not being that way, the they fall off your pedestal. You think that they're not the person that you thought they were, but in truth is that maybe you didn't get to know them fully to comprehend why it is that they acted differently on that day. Uh, and that's just an example of a negative spiritual contract. A positive spiritual contract, again, still unknowingly or subconscious, uh, when that person starts acting different, you, instead of saying, oh, you're not the person that I thought you were, and you've been fake all along, instead of doing that, you lift them up, like, hey, what are you going through? Uh, what can I do to help? Do you need to talk? Do you need to cry? Do you need to scream? Whatever it is that you need to know, that you feel like you need to do, tell me so I could help you out. There's been situations where, um, well, my mind just went to the show Grace and Frankie. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix, and it's about two older women starring Jane Fonda and the lovely Lily Tomlin. So the show is about their dynamic. They didn't like each other at first, but they became friends. And I remember this episode, um, and I may be remembering it incorrectly. I would have to rewatch it. It's been a while since I saw it. But if I remember correctly, one of them was going through something. Lily Tomlin's character, who is Frankie, and she is breaking uh, dishes and in order to get her anger out. And if I remember correctly, Grace, Jane Fonda's character, she kind of goes like, "Oh, you're doing your Frankie thing again." Um, but later in that episode, she goes to her friend and joins her breaking dishes. The reason that she was breaking dishes to begin with was to create like a mosaic art type thing. Um, so, anyway, this is what I mean by a spiritual contract, a positive spiritual contract where you lift yourself and you lift the other as well. So you're lifting each other. You're trying to support each other. Um, as for emotional contracts, these usually you create knowingly. Uh, I know I said that most of the times it's unknowingly or subconscious, but with emotional, at least romantically speaking, it's knowingly. And when it comes to friendships and family, you're creating an emotional contract knowingly. You may not know what that contract is, but you do make a contract. Um, when it comes to strangers, yeah, it's unknowingly. Okay, anyway, when it comes to emotional contracts, you and another person um, feel certain types of way. You're not going to feel the same thing as they are. And it is up to both parties to respect each other's um, emotions. In a positive emotional contract, you support them, just like in spiritual. You support them, you validate their feelings, and you make them feel known. In negative emotional contracts, you create these contracts, like I said before, and knowing how that person feels, you still decide to put them down for feeling the way they feel, invalidating their feelings, making them feel worse than what they already did if they were feeling bad. Even if they were feeling happy, like there are some cases where you could think, how dare you be happy when I'm not happy? And that's kind of like a narcissistic complex, or in a lot of cases, it's just an ego thing because we haven't fully healed our ego. Um, but that's emotional contracts, both positive and negative. Um, Positive intellectual contracts, those are the ones that you admire what people think, how they think, and you make them feel good about um, thinking the way they do, validating their thought process and how they perceive things. And these are contracts made when you're sharing your ideals, you're sharing your stories. Like right now, I'm creating an intellectual, spiritual, and emotional contract with the listeners. And in order to overstand that a little further, give me a second. My throat's getting kind of dry. Yeah, I know. Okay, the reason I say that I'm creating a intellectual, emotional, and spiritual contract with the listeners, you guys, um, is because intellectually, I'm expressing myself, and in my contract, you could say that I'm saying, uh, listen to me and take what resonates, what doesn't resonate, you leave behind. So that's in the intellectual contract. Um, Emotional contract. I share my stories, share my experiences, and I allow you guys to see or hear that vulnerable side to me. Um, and I don't expect or assume that you will respect the way I process everything, whether it's intellectual or emotional or spiritual. I don't expect that you respect it or agree with it, and that's okay with me. I'm putting myself out there, and the emotional contract, apart from being vulnerable, is me sharing my stories so that maybe it can make some of you relate to those stories. Um, Same thing as intellectual. It's very much, if it resonates, take it. If it doesn't, leave it. Same thing with spiritual. Sharing my spirituality with you guys. Uh, if it resonates, take it. If it doesn't, leave it. That's very much in conclusion, in a summary, I mean. In a summary, that's what a relationship contract is. You either take it or you leave it. If it resonates, great. If it doesn't, walk away. We um we kind of punish ourselves when we have these intellectual, emotional, physical, and spiritual relationships. We punish ourselves because we tend to think that certain things are our fault, or we blame others, and we should remind ourselves, if it resonates with me, with this person specifically, or people, if it resonates with me, okay, I'll continue to be in this relationship contract. I'll continue to be in this relationship, whether it's friend, family, romantic, or otherwise. You choose to continue if it resonates. And if it doesn't, you choose to leave or stay. So that's on us. That's something that we have to remember. Remember, once you see something that you don't like, that you don't resonate with, you should ask yourself, should I continue this type of relationship contract? Should I leave this relationship contract? That's the first thing that you should ask yourself when it comes to relationship contracts. But we, as human beings, learning lessons through our experiences, our obstacles, and our mistakes, we tend to be very emotional and overthink things, and we kind of self sabotage ourselves. Therefore, we have to repeat the lesson. So, yeah, um, That's the summary of relationship contracts. And the last type of contract is called, or I call it, ethereal contracts, or a life path contract. Um, well, that's just like the emotion behind it, or not the emotion. Uh, don't know what word I was looking for. I can't think of it. But yeah, ethereal or life path contracts are words or terms that I use to simplify them because I actually call them celestial contracts. So for me, maybe you're familiar with celestial contracts, maybe you're not, but either way, it's all good. A celestial contract is ethereal. Ethereal meaning dealing with energy. Whether you believe in it or you don't, it's fine. Either way, energy flows through everything that exists in the universe. As I'm speaking, when we speak, we create vibrations that go through frequencies. Sometimes you could be at a higher frequency, like when you scream, uh, and sometimes it could be in a lower frequency when you want to either whisper or make your voice kind of deeper. Deeper. No, that was stupid, but I'm so stupid. Um, yeah, in case you didn't know, I have a lot of stupid moments. Uh, I think this is one of the few recorded stupid moments that I've had. Anyway, our voice creates vibrations that move through frequencies, and depending also, it doesn't have to be high pitch or low pitch, depending where you're voicing from, what type of emotion you're voicing from, whether it's love, hate, sadness, anger, whatever type of emotion that you're talking with defines how low or how high the frequency you're speaking from is. And you you manifest through speaking, through talking. This is why in religion you have prayer. When you pray, you could pray within yourself and you're still producing a frequency. You could pray out loud and you produce a frequency. Um like when you pray for somebody who is sick and you're praying for them to be healed, that comes out of compassion, that comes out of love. But even when you pray, there is a potential to uh, pray from a low frequency, from a low energy. And this is kind of like, just to give an example, um, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a situation. Like, okay, let's just say uh, someone walks into McDonald's and they go in expecting to be served right away, to have their food instantly ready. They go in with that expectation. The cashier is doing their work. They're um, putting in the order, charging them, and let's say it takes a little bit over uh, 5 minutes, and you go up to the person goes up to the counter, and they start complaining about the time and that they've been waiting a long time. And the cashier normally would be like, hey, we're working on it, we're kind of busy, but you will get your order. And well, the person who did order gets angry, waits a little bit more, and let's say that their order is finished. They give her her order, or why did I say her? They they give them their order, and the first thing the customer says is, uh, "I waited a long time, and you were rude to me and very disrespectful. I'm gonna pray for your soul." This comes from a relative perspective. They thought they were being mistreated, but the cashier was uh, very concise and very respectful, letting them know how long the time could be. And um, when you do this, and it's not just prayer or religion, I mean, it's not just religion, it's everybody, even in the spiritual. Ah, why can't I speak? Damn. Okay, even in the spiritual community, you have this. You have this thing where you're like, you get mad at somebody, and you say something like, "Oh, I'm gonna make sure that you get what you deserve." Just by saying that, you're speaking words of action, and you're manifesting this. So, whether you know it or not, you're wishing for something to happen for that person just because you perceive them to be rude. Still sticking to the restaurant example. Um, like, you don't have to work with energy in order, even what I mean to say before that, even if you don't go home and you start working with energy to send it their way, just because you felt disrespected, even if you don't do that, you are manifesting it just by speaking it. So it's like in uh, Wiccan religion, you have spells. Wiccan, pagan, neo pagan, um, and well, really, every religion, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, a Jewish, or Judaism, my bad, Judaism. In all religions, you have some sort or some type of prayer technique, whether it's meditating, uh, saying it out loud, whatever it is. you're using that energy to, or you're using those intentions, your intentions, to manifest something. So we have to be very careful with what we say, how we pray, and most importantly, what type of intention we say these things. And even if you don't say it to somebody and you have your individual practice, um, your intention, always think about what is my intention. And really, sometimes you just want to express anger and you don't really wish them, or you don't have the intention for something bad happening to them. So expressing anger is just fine. It's a human emotion, but ask ourselves, what was my intention? Because uh, energy is very effective and it travels. That's the point that I was trying to get at. Uh, Wiccan religions that practice what people call witchcraft, they use spells, and the word spell came from an old English word, spell, which means to talk, to speak. So this is why um, religions that people see as witchcraft, um, that they use the word spell. They took the word spell, and it literally is kind of like putting putting a sign up to people, like, yes, I'm casting a spell. Literally, I'm just talking. I'm talking to the universe, and I'm putting my intentions out there through talking. So that's where spell comes from. Why is it relevant to this conversation? Because that's essentially what I'm doing with this spiritual, emotional, and intellectual contract. Spiritually, I'm talking to you guys, and I'm coming from an intention that I hope my message resonates with people and that they continue to listen and even be part of this podcast. I want to have conversations with you guys, and I want to learn from you guys. Whatever your perspective is, I want to learn. I want to find out why we can perceive different things in different manners. And I like seeing things from different perspectives, even when it's a negative perspective or what people perceive to be negative. Um, Sometimes I go, yeah, okay, I get why that person thinks that way and why they express themselves in that manner. So I get it, it's valid. Um, but I would like to learn about more perspectives, have people tell me their story, share their story. Uh, Not to put them out there, of course, just for them to share their stories, their perspectives, so that people listening can resonate with them as well, and not just me, of course. Um, because I may be talking and talking, and it might not resonate with you at all. Going back to spiritual contract, that's part of the spiritual contract that I feel is there. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. But anyway, I was supposed to be talking about ethereal contracts or celestial contracts. So I already explained all about how energy works and how it works from intention. Our celestial contracts, believe it or not, happen before we are even conceived. And I'll try to explain this as quickly as possible. As you know by now, I talk a lot. So, anyway, we live in a three-dimensional realm. We live in a three-dimensional reality. When people hear the word dimension, they have different definitions for it, but in my vocabulary, dimension just means reality. You could be living in a three-dimensional world and be connected to every other dimension that exists, every other reality that exists. And maybe that's another conversation for another time. But the higher the dimension that you are in, whether it's mentally, physically, or etherically, time moves differently. A quick example would be astral projection. If you don't know what astral projection is, it's basically sending your spirit out into the universe and exploring, gathering information. But for me, astral projection, I have done it before. Once or twice. I think it was twice. But in my whole life, those are the only times that I did it, until I learned that I could travel to other dimensions using a different method, without my spirit leaving my body. It is a dangerous thing to do, astral projection that is, where remote viewing or remote sensing is a lot safer, because you leave your body vulnerable and your spirit as well. There are such things as what people call psychic attacks or etheric attacks, that your spirit is attacked, and when it comes back into your body, if it comes back into your body, you have changes that you may not be able to explain, because with astral projection, going from a high dimension to a lower dimension, it gets fuzzy because you're no longer in that mental space. Whereas remote viewing, you can go into that space, that higher dimension, and you could still remember most things, even when you come down, your mind comes down to a three-dimensional reality. So you're literally, with remote sensing, you're sending your mind off to higher dimensions, gathering information, and that information stays within your body. Anyway, try to make it a quick explanation, but alas, um, the point that I'm trying to make is that in the highest dimension possible would be what I call the God dimension, where the universe was created. In that space, there is no time. Uh, well, let me rephrase that. Time moves differently. Everything is happening at the same time. What we call the past and the future and the present, it's all happening at the same time in that God dimension. And in that dimension, that's where our celestial contracts are created. And um, these celestial contracts are based in karmic agreements. Let's say that my spirit was curious to know what it was like to live on Earth, and it signed up to live on Earth. Think about it as an amusement park. This God dimension allows spirits, energies to decide for themselves what ride they want to ride. And they can ride multiple rides since it's happening all at the same time in that dimension. Maybe at some point my spirit would like to feel what it's like to be in a higher dimension, or maybe a lower dimension. And anyway, this karmic agreement, what the purpose of this agreement is to live life, speaking here on a three-dimensional level on Earth, is to live life, learn, and if your spirit doesn't feel like it learned enough, it will come back. And that's why people say that they can recall past lives. And because they've been here before, their spirit has been here before. Their soul, however, is recycled. And what is the soul? What's the difference between spirit and soul? The spirit is the true essence of what we have within us. Whereas the soul is the vessel, this body that I live in, or that I'm renting, if you want to put it that way. This body is the soul, and that's why you have people say that certain celebrities are immortal because they look exactly like people from the past, down to the um, what do you call them? Beauty marks or scars or birthmarks, um, because, and I'm talking about scars that you are born with, um, because that soul is recycled to be used again. And this happens continuously. Think about it as um, an AI uh, computer, I guess, that um, can create certain facial features of a person, and it can only create so much because that's the only information that they have, that the AI has. So think about it that way. Uh, in the God realm, it has so many faces, so many body builds, that those are the ones that it can use. And maybe it's limitless, maybe it does have a limit, uh, but if it is infinite, it creates the same, or it recycles the same soul, the same body, um, because it's already been used. So what's the point of throwing it away? Anyway, karmic agreements, right? Uh, yeah, our spirits decide to come here and learn. If they don't learn, uh, they come back. And this is what people call reincarnation. And they can come back as anything on this planet. You could come back as human. You could come back as um, animals, plants, earth, fire, air, water, um, anything that exists in this world. A chair, shit. Like, you could come back as a chair. Don't you think that's wild? Like, imagine you being a chair and somebody sitting on you, and you're thinking like, well, I guess I can't do shit about it because they're the ones that own me. That we own a chair, and that might have thrown you off, and maybe you're thinking I'm just being silly. But think about it. If you've seen Pocahontas, the Disney film, how she says that everything has a life, has a spirit, has a name. It's very spot on. Everything that exists has uh, energy to it. And that energy comes from a spirit. But yeah, let's say that when my spirit first chose to ride Earth realm, uh, the first time around, maybe it was all confused and didn't know what the fuck was going on. So they write it again, and they write it in a different form, because energy doesn't die, it doesn't dissipate, it just changes form, it transmutes. So it comes back in a different form, and it starts to learn a little bit about what it is like to live on Earth. And um, anyway, this process is repeated, and it's actually, this process is very scammy, if you will, but not going into that because I want to focus on celestial contracts. Um, so, in this contract, you agree to it, and you agree to come back and learn more. And every time you learn something, you advance to a higher self in this realm. And uh, just think about it this way: an all-knowing spirit is like, I wonder what it's like to be human. They don't know shit. like, like they're not even aware of how much they're capable of doing. And they're like, I want to know what it's like to be an actual human. As an all knowing spirit, I know what they're like, but I don't know what it's like to live like one. So I'll choose to ride this ride. And when you agree to this, when your spirit agrees to this, it's based on free will. And there are some non negotiable clauses. Clauses. How do you pronounce that word? Legal clause. Legal clauses. Am I saying it right? I don't know. I'm fixated on how I'm pronouncing it. Anyway, there are some non negotiable clauses that we see as mistakes, obstacles, um, horrible experiences, but they're really lessons. And like I said earlier, if you don't learn your lesson, you're going to repeat it until you do learn it. That's the only way that we could grow as human beings, is learning. So learn from your lessons, learn from your mistakes, the obstacles, the negative experiences, and the positive ones as well. Learn from them. And this is what a life or a celestial contract is. You're agreeing to live a certain life. Um, like me, uh, I was born with epilepsy. And throughout most of my life, I was like, why? Why me? Why was I supposed to be was I supposed to be born with epilepsy? It took me a long time to realize that having disabilities, because later on I was diagnosed with osteoporosis, and the medication that they gave me throughout my life caused severe side effects. So throughout my life, I was like, why me? And I came to a realization some years ago that I was meant to have epilepsy, have osteoporosis, uh, which my osteoporosis was caused by my medication. So the reason that this was necessary for me to live through was so that I could learn to be empathic towards other people who may have certain illnesses as well, whether they be less severe or more severe than my own. And people think that I'm not empathic towards, um, when I say people, I mean specific people. Then I'm not empathic towards people with disabilities, but I truly am. If somebody starts saying something that could sound prejudice or discriminative, like for example, I've been told that there are people that have illnesses, but uh, they just have illnesses, that the only reason they have illnesses is because they want to collect disability. That to me does not make sense. And I I do voice my opinion, and I'm like, they didn't choose to have a disability. It just so happened that they were meant to have this disability. And to learn how to live with that disability, that was a strong challenge for me. Learning how to live with my disabilities. And I continue to learn different ways of continuing to live with a disability. And um, these are people that are bitter, and they feel like people with disability. I actually had one person tell me this, that people with disability are a waste of space. I was pissed off when they told me that, and um, it was at a time where I felt rejected because of my disability, and them knowing that I had a disability, it hurt so much that because I believed it, and it took me a little bit, and this is when I learned that people with disability, they have potential in them that people underestimate. A lot of people pity me because I have osteoporosis and epilepsy and anxiety. Anxiety is just some form of chemical imbalance. Uh, they pity me for these things, and I'm like, now I could say this. I'm okay with it. Like, I know how to manage them, and I learned to live with them. Yeah, uh, in the past, doctors have found it hard to give me treatment because my body tends to reject the medication, so it caused me to have a lot of seizures. There was a time where I was having hundreds of seizures in one day, and I would be in the hospital all the time. And they would blame me. The doctors would blame me for not taking my medication, even though I was. And I would ask them, why is my body not accepting the positive effects of the medication? And it is accepting the negative side effects. It took me a while to learn why, but I asked the the nurses instead of the doctors because the doctors were very fixated on blaming me. But when I asked, actually multiple times, several nurses, each nurse said the same thing, and they said you have a high immunity system or a high immune system to the point where your body might reject the medication. And that to me made sense. So when I brought it up to my neurologist, we tried different medications, and there was just this struggle to find the right medication combination. Um, this actually just like 6 months ago. Let me see, November. So December, January, February, March, 4 months ago. Um, 4 months ago, they changed my medication once more because I was having seizures awake. Usually my seizures are during my sleep. But that medication has controlled those seizures. So I'm glad for that. And I'm at a point where I'm not having negative side effects as much. Um, but anyway, what I learned from having a disability and having to take medication without a choice, because without this medication, I'll continue to have seizures. I learned, first of all, that medication, what they call medication, and you could do your own research. Well, you don't even have to do your own research for this, but because they say it to you in commercials, like for example, medication for the heart, it may cause chest pain, blood clots, or tachycardia, whatever emotion or not emotions, side effects they mention. They tell you them. They tell it to your face. So this is what I learned, that what they call medication are actually drugs. Drugs, by definition, is a substance that alters your uh, physical and or mental state. And this is what they call medication does. It alters our physical and or our mental state. And I learned that I had to be more careful with the type of medication that they wanted to prescribe to me. That's something that I had to learn. And I had to learn what medical professionals I could trust and which ones I could not. In general, I don't trust doctors because of a lot of things. Their goal isn't to treat and cure a person, it's to give them drugs and make them sicker so that they can, or so that they have to go back to the hospital continuously or go to frequent clinic appointments. Because this is what they do. It's a cycle of take this pill, get sick, go to the hospital, go to the clinic. And then you go to the hospital or you go to the clinic and they're like, oh, we're going to prescribe you another medication for uh, those symptoms that you're experiencing. I would be the type of person that would be like, okay, yes, as long as it helps. And it would make things worse. So that's something I had to learn, to do my research with the medication, see what side effects they can cause, because I am prone to side effects, and be more wary with the doctors um, that I see. Anyway, I kind of went off topic, but what I was trying to make a point towards is that in these celestial contracts, there are non negotiable clauses that we have to live through. Once we learn from them, things get better. Um, and sometimes they're permanent. Like, for example, my epilepsy. I've had it since I was young, probably since birth. I wasn't properly diagnosed until I was 4. But having osteoporosis, which they tell me is irreversible, natural remedies will do better, will heal you better than the stuff that they give us. But at the moment, I have no option for natural remedies because I have to continue to take my medication. And there is such a thing that, or a natural remedy that can cure epilepsy. It's called the alkaline diet. Do the research on alkaline diet. Basically, it's a diet with nothing acidic. Acidic meaning poisonous to our body. And that includes soda, that includes junk food, and it includes all the stuff that they put in our vegetables and fruits, the wax, the pesticides, GMOs, all of those things are acidic. So the alkaline diet persists of natural, organic food, not messed with. I went on that diet for 3 months, and during those 3 months, I stopped taking my medication, um, and I was seizure free for 3 months. And the reason I went off that medication or that diet was because it's expensive. It is expensive as fuck. And mostly what my diet persisted of was cucumbers, lettuce, carrots, and grapes and mango. Mostly grapes. You might be thinking, oh, you weren't getting the vitamins and minerals that you needed. I was. I was aware that my body needed protein as well, so I ate vegetables with high protein. Uh, but the grapes specifically, uh, they have magnesium. They have high levels of magnesium in them, and specifically the purple ones. The purple ones have high levels of magnesium that is essentially brain food. And you might be asking, well, you were talking about a cure for epilepsy. Why do you continue to have epilepsy? I was on that diet for 3 months. That's it. That's a little fragment of time. Um, but I had to go back on my medication because I started having seizures again. But even then, with my medication, I was still having seizures, just not as often. Anyway, I don't know why I'm talking so much about this specifically. I guess it's a message that needs to be said out there, that needs to be heard, I mean. But my point was that non negotiable clauses are things that you go through, and sometimes it comes in forms of abuse. And if you don't learn from that abusive experience, you are prone to repeating the same cycle again, maybe with another person or another situation, but you're prone to reliving that cycle. Once you learn, uh, I have found that the cycle breaks. And yeah, well, celestial contracts, that's what essentially they are. They're contracts uh, that we accept, that we accept a certain way that we're going to live, no matter in what form it is on this earth. And we live to learn. And even though, because I've been kind of focusing on the non-negotiable causes clauses, let me remind you that it is a karmic agreement based on free will. So when we ask ourselves, why me? Why is this happening to me? You choose to react a certain way, to feel a certain way, and to think a certain way. This builds your perception of things. So every time you react to a certain situation, you're creating um, a future for yourself. Let's say I have two paths in front of me. Which one will I choose? Well, okay, let's go to the one that has green and it's flourished with nature and it looks peaceful compared to the one that looks sinister, dry, dead. I'd rather go to the um, beautiful one, the one that looks peaceful and not scary. And turns out that because I chose that path, maybe I find myself with predators um, or different types of dangers. Maybe the plants are poisonous. Maybe the animals are erratic. And maybe if I had gone through the dark and scary path, maybe since it looked dead to begin with, I wouldn't have confronted those issues because there's no one there. There's nothing there that could harm me. I was just afraid to go through that path. And maybe the maybe both paths lead to the same location, but it is a choice that I made. based on my perception of things. The beautiful and peaceful, seemingly peaceful path looks favorable, then the dark and sinister one. That's my perception in this example. And because I chose that, I had to go through certain obstacles to get to the same location that the dark path would have taken me to. So that's really what free will is about. You get to choose what you do, how you feel, how you act, how you think, how you perceive things. It's all based on choice. People say that free will is a construct. I get it. It feels like it's a construct because we live in a place that is made to push um, some people down and to build others up. So it feels like we have no free will. And the fact is that this is the life that was meant for us this time around, this lifetime. And we have to learn how to live with our situation and look at the options that we have. The universe is always giving us options, and it's up to us to decide what options we take and which ones we leave behind. But yeah, that's celestial contracts, um, and these contracts. Since I did speak about the other types of contracts that can be broken, this one can be broken as well. The universe always keeps its word. The one that is able to break it is us. The universe won't break it. If you say, I want money, the universe is going to say, okay, here are your choices. You have job opportunities over here. You have side gigs over here. You have reselling some things that you may own. And then you have more negative opportunities that are there for you. Personally, I go for the more favorable ones. But I choose which way I want to achieve my goal. Whether it's money, whether it's um, connecting with people, friendships, building friendships, whatever it is that I'm asking or I'm telling the universe, not asking, that I'm telling the universe I need. The universe places decisions for me. I have options. And the one that takes the decision is us. But the reason I say we're able to break these contracts, um, what I mean is, I hear a lot of people say this, and I've said this myself. I'm tired of living in this place. This place is hell. It feels like hell. Because for people who have been ostracized and pushed aside, it does feel that way. It feels like you have to work 10 times harder than other people at what you do in order to achieve your goals. But what I mean by breaking the contract is, okay, I've lived the Earth experience. It was cool. It was fun. I learned. And this lifetime, I got a shitty lifetime. And you know what? I've dealt with Earth enough. And in order to do this, you have to be spiritually in tuned within yourself. You have, first of all, most people won't acknowledge that they are living this life that they chose. Uh, and that would be the first step. Acknowledge that you did choose this, whether it's through prayer, through meditation, through different spiritual means, whatever it is that you're in tune with, that's your connection to the universe, your connection to God. Um, and once you realize this, it's like, oh shit, I chose this. Okay, well, since I chose this, I lived, I learned, it was fun. Uh, but this lifetime, I'm good. I got to see the good parts. I got to see the bad parts. I am no longer coming back to Earth. When you say this, universe confirms it and is like, okay, you don't have to write this right anymore. You're good. You could choose a new adventure. And this is, even though we live in a flow of time, this is happening simultaneously. I already said I don't want to live on Earth again. I don't want to come back to Earth. That's been confirmed. And my spirit is having fun elsewhere. Because it's all happening at the same time. And the knowledge that my spirit gathered from being a human, from being a bug, a plant, whatever my past lifetimes were, um, my spirit carries this knowledge onto their next adventure. And the way they do this is what we call our consciousness, that little voice that's always talking to us, our intuition. That little voice carries the knowledge that we gathered on Earth onto the next exploration. But yeah, that's it for celestial contracts. And before I end this, um, I would like to do a collective energy reading for everybody out there listening. If you're listening and if you've gotten this far into the podcast, this message was meant for you. Okay, everybody. So, what I'm getting is that a lot of you are feeling oppressed. You're feeling like you don't have a place in this world, you don't fit in, or you're being made to feel that way. And I'm getting the feeling that a lot of you that are listening may be dealing with people close to you who are sick and are dealing with the sickness, and you're trying to do something for them, but you're not sure what to do. Um, and it comes back to a sense of oppression, feeling incapable of doing something for the person that you care about feeling impotent. I'm hearing the word impotent. impotent. Um, yeah, repeat that word 3 times, right? Anyway, so right now I'm communing with energy, and the message that I'm getting is that you need to look up. You're looking down at the moment, and this is a metaphor. You're looking at the negative things of what your situation is when you have to look up and look at your options. Funny enough, this is the message that's coming through in this podcast because we just talked about options. Look at your options and decide what it is you can do, and to remember that there are things that you can't control. So think about those things. Remind yourself, what is it I can control and what is it that I can't control? Usually, you can control your actions, your thoughts, your perception, the way you think, the way you feel, and just in general, your essence you can control. What you can't control is other people's actions, other people's thoughts, and um, their feelings towards whatever it is that you're going through. You can't control their actions or the way that their actions ripple out and affect you. Even though you feel like you shouldn't have been affected, you are being affected. And it feels like a lot of you are being worried that things for you can get worse. What you can do is stand up, dust yourself off, and persevere. Try again. Try a different method. Um, you have these or this ability to re reimagine your world, and I'm getting something else. It was interrupted. Um, but that your perception of things has to improve, because if you don't improve your perception, you'll become stagnant, and that's the last thing that you want to be, is stagnant, or that's how you feel. Remember, this is a collective reading, by the way, so I'm tuning into uh, the collective energy, and the collective energy is letting me know how it is you guys are feeling. Um, I'm getting that a lot of you are worried about political things, and uh, you're trying to do something about it, but so far, so far it hasn't panned out. And you try and you try, and it doesn't um, go the way you want. And specifically, I just got that you're trying to talk to people, uh, try trying to let them see your perspective and how it is that things can change if we come together, or again, collective reading. When I said if we come together, I meant in your situation, whoever you're surrounded by, and you want them to do something as well, you're trying to let them know if you come together, something can happen. You can create a ripple as much as other people who are creating ripples for you. And family, I'm getting the word family, whether it be chosen or by blood, your family are the ones that can uplift you, the ones that comprehend you. And as I said, blood family, it did say that not all blood family for the collective, not all blood families for the collective uh, are as supportive as others. So if you can't rely on your blood family, go towards your chosen family, your tribe. So, is there anything else that needs to be said for the collective? And this long pause is me focusing on what I'm trying to download from the collective energy. So, just give me a second. Don't give up. That was the one thing that it said. Just don't give up. And I hope that it resonated with you. And there were certain things in the beginning that weren't relatable to the second part of it, the whole health things and people being sick around you. Um, Remember, it was a collective reading, so there was multiple energies that I was getting information from, but the collective energy that I got that from was more interested in having that message be heard because some of you have family, friends, people you care about that are sick, and um, basically look at the options. Just look at what it is you can control and what you can't. I guess the second part did relate to the first part as well. And yeah, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Thank you for tuning in and listening all the way through if you have. I appreciate that. As always, you can contact me through email at inbalancingthespectrum.podcast@gmail.com. Also on Instagram, you can follow me there and also uh, contact me through there. If you ever want to be part of a conversation or bring up a certain conversation, you can message me, let me know what you want to talk about or what you want to hear. And I do welcome you guys to be part of my podcast as guests. I would like to hear what you have to say as well. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, sending you all my love. And also, as always, remember, we're all living on a spectrum. Thank you. Until next time.